Welcome! You're listening to Making Relationships Work. We're a company focused on women and their marriage. We lead and teach women just like you how to grow into and access, whenever you need to, your wise woman self, the part of you who is deeply connected to your purpose, your innate wisdom, and your husband and family. We teach women in marriages how to rebuild trust and connection, to work through conflicts, no matter how deep, no matter how painful, and to lead your marriage to a place where the two of you experience marriage mastery. This podcast is about learning the systems and techniques that truly work to reconnect you back into your marriage so that you can experience the freedom that comes with a masterful marriage. Since this podcast is totally free, if you're getting tons of value and you want to support us and make sure that you get more of this good stuff, subscribe below and rate and review our podcast today. Now, on to the show. Hello, women making marriages work. Hello. And hello to those listening along on our podcast and our YouTube channel, which is called Making Relationships Work. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So tonight I'm answering another member from Women Making Marriages Work, our Facebook group, who has posted a question for me in a thread, which is available for anyone who belongs to the group to post me a question. And I'm going to answer it again tonight. So guess what? This is a tricky question, and it's a multi-layered, quite technical question. And it's all around sex addiction and pornography and masturbation, and this sense of how do we overcome this as a team, and can this be overcome? And so I'm answering the question of Emily, and I'll read it out to you. She says, what is my role as a committed Christian wife with 3 young kids under 7, with a husband who has a sex addiction and has struggled with pornography and masturbation since age 11 due to generational sin in his family and no parenting from his father, who also has a porn addiction even now as a still married Christian man. Her husband is now in a men's support group specifically for sex addiction, but he's realizing how bad his problem is and can't seem to break the chains of it. He's supposed to be clean for 6 months before he can even disclose anything to her, and he's only been able to go 3 weeks clean over 18 months of being in the group. She feels helpless and useless staying on in this marriage as he is jerking off more than having sex with her to random fantasies of porn women stuck on his mind. And so there's a few things we need to set up front before I answer this question. The first is I don't come from a religious paradox with the way I answer these questions. And so as you talk about being a Christian wife and you talk about generational sin, those are not constructs I'm going to use to answer you. And so you can use your constructs to make sense of what I'm going to say in the way in which you live your life, and that's totally fine. And I will go ahead and answer it from the way in which I would treat this experience if you were a client of mine. So what we have here is we have an addiction, and it's based on sex and pornography. And we know that this is a fast, rapid growing problem for men and for women because of what addiction is and what addiction does. And so the newest research on addiction is that it is a trauma response. And what that means is, and it kind of speaks to the intergenerational, I'm going to use the word trauma instead of sin, in his family. So his parenting, his father was absent and also has a porn addiction. And so if you take away the word porn and just hear the word addiction, then what you hear is there's intergenerational trauma. And so addiction has become a intergenerational coping response. And the method of meeting the need to feel better about the trauma that's stored in the physiology, it's stored in the neurological pathways, it's stored in the felt experience of the human, is to try and change that feeling using something external to them that boosts their sense of feeling better And we know that when you orgasm, you are getting a lovely hit of dopamine, of serotonin, of the drug that has you feel like you are loved and safe and cared for. And so if you come from a background where you have had trauma in your life, trauma in your parents' life, perhaps trauma even before that, then feeling those ways have been very hard to come by. And so looking around, your husband, Emily, has said, I need to feel better than I do based on what happened to me as a child and what it feels like to be me. And so I look externally. And when I look externally, what I'm looking to have happen is to feel better. And I've found a way which gives me very high rates or very high dosages of those feelings, serotonin, those kinds of uplifting chemicals, dopamine, by watching porn. And so what we know about porn is that it is non-reality. So the way in which it's constructed, the social components of it don't match the reality of what sex is. And it is all about achieving a sense of heightened internal experience, which then leads to an orgasm or ejaculation in a man. And when that happens, because it's so stimulating to watch, the ejaculation, the orgasm itself becomes even more heightened. And so it gives you even more of a high. And so we really, Emily, could be talking about any kind of addiction here and just using more of it or heavier versions of it. And so now let's talk about what that does to a relationship. So what it does is it puts a third thing in the relationship. So we could be talking about drugs, we could be talking about alcohol, we could be talking about gambling, we could be talking about overspending on shoes or handbags or cars. We could be also talking about sex. All of those things are addictions, yeah? And all of those things are designed to change the physiological experience so that you have a different internal moment. And for the minute you feel a bit better. Only it becomes compulsive because you don't have a way of long-term navigating, you just have short-term relief. And so just like an alcoholic needs more and more alcohol, or a drug addict always chases that first high, never quite gets it again, it's the same thing when we're looking at sex addiction. So what it does in a relationship is it puts a third party in. And at the moment you're saying, how can I stay with somebody when there's an imaginary but real to him third party or series of women that he fantasizes to in an unhealthy way. So fantasy in a relationship, which is a whole other topic, is very healthy in a functional, connected, kind, loving, well-balanced, masterful relationship. But this is not that. So you feel like there are other women in the marriage. And so that makes you feel further and further apart. You don't really have high levels of trust or commitment. You don't feel heard and understood. You don't feel like you can influence this. You don't feel like you can build something together that is going to meet your needs and have his needs be less, they're kind of very escalated. So you would like them less escalated, and you'd like him to be able to manage those feelings without using pornography as a way to change the internal experience he's having. And all of those things your husband is trying. He's going to this support group, which we'll talk about in a minute, and failing. And so what we have is a husband who already feels not good enough in his body, who's already got a low level of self-esteem and self-worth, who's compensating to bring himself up by using pornography. And when he does that, he puts a gap between you and he, which is not what he wants, but he's actually getting a payoff in that he feels better in himself, but you're missing him. He's probably missing you, but he also can't find you, but he's trying. And so it's this mess of, what am I going to do? My friend is in trouble. I should be there for him, but there's this whole history and we've got nothing that's working. And that's really what we're talking about here, I think, Emily. Nothing you're doing is working. So that support group for sex addiction, I would guess, is not run well. I would guess it doesn't actually offer relief to your friend or strategies for your friend or ways in which he can meet his needs differently. It sounds like it's low in psychoeducation and it's low in therapeutic or clinical content, which is really the shift that we need. And so he's been in there for 18 months. You haven't seen any change. I think he's in the wrong place. That's what I would say. And so what would the right place look like? The right place would look like evidence-based treatment. It would look like a clinical psychologist and psychiatrist running the program. It would look like, I'm just wondering what would be helpful and a general rule of thumb for everyone watching. It would look like structure and homework and deep inner exploratory work and shared in a safe environment. It would look like you being involved and understanding where your friend is and receiving similar levels of education. That's what it would look like for his treatment. We haven't even started covering the marriage, Emily. And so the marriage bit is my zone of genius. Yeah. So my zone of genius would say there are 3 people in the marriage. There is you, there is your friend, your husband, and there is the addiction. And the addiction at the moment is getting the most attention and you are getting the least. So it would go addiction, your husband, then you. So no wonder you're empty. No wonder you can't be sure if this will work. Your friend is trying hard. He's in a context that isn't working for him and you need a different way. So where would we start with that? First of all, we start with getting a different level of support for your friend. Second of all, we start on the marriage. We need to start on the marriage. And so you, if you haven't already, watch my masterclass. That, though, is not going to get you where you need to go because what you have is complex mental health living in your relationship, which we deal with in our program all the time. We deal with addiction in our program. You've probably seen some of the testimonial videos of women who have come before you. So how would we help you? I think ideally you would watch the masterclass and book a breakthrough call if you really, really want help, and we can help. And if that doesn't feel like a good fit for you, then you are looking at sorting out your husband's support group. And then you are looking at working with the 3 of you in the marriage. And how do you bring the addiction so that it leaves and the marriage the 2 of you build is going to support both of you for what your individual needs are in a way that makes sure that the sensitivity of having addiction live in the relationship is well cared for both of you. And so what we know about addiction is you need 5 years without relapse to be sure that you've got a good, I think an 80% chance of it not having a relapse again. And at the moment you're at 3 weeks in 18 months. So what we can see from that data point is it's not working. So I would encourage you to watch the masterclass, book a call, come work with us. If that doesn't suit with you, then you need to find it, well, either way, you need to find a different method of intervention for your husband. And what you're looking for then is stabilizing him in that program and then starting to find an incredibly qualified therapist with a high level of skill set and training to be able to work with you in this space. I know that oftentimes women who come from religious backgrounds, Christian or otherwise, want to stay in that context, and that might not be the thing that's going to get you where you need to go, Emily. However, you might be able to find somebody who can do it at the level that you need. And so just be open to looking in both areas is what I would say. All right, everybody. Well, this was a big, hard topic, wasn't it? But we do big, hard topics in here every day in every way. There's no big, hard topic we haven't seen. And so today, Emily, all of us are wishing you well, and we are very much on your side, cheering you on. I'll talk to you soon, my darlings. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll see you later. Alligators. Bye, loves. Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you're feeling fired up and you're ready to grow and you want to know more about how to do that, here is what I want you to do now. I want you to watch my marriage masterclass. This masterclass will show you how my clients have turned their struggling marriages into thriving marriages, even without their husband's buy-in. How my clients have gone from cycles of poor communication, disconnect and loneliness to being teammates and soulmates with their husbands again, even after they've already tried everything. And the proven system my clients use to start transforming their marriages in minutes, not years, because life is too precious to waste one more minute in an unhappy and unfulfilling marriage. So if this is what you're looking for, I want you to click the link below and take a look